guys who want a little better understanding as to what a seasonal two-stage full tune-up package, or at least at what that JMD small engine repair, that means when you buy this service here. So, the reason I started the video that way is because that's exactly how we start the tune-up. We do what I call a hot oil change. I make sure that the equipment is up to full operating temperature prior to draining the oil. To me, that just allows the viscosity within the crankcase to thin out, because as the oil temperature raises, the oil becomes thinner. So because of that, that allows it to A, drain faster. I need to find a tool. A, drain faster, and then B, you get the chance that that oil gets splashed around in there, and because it's getting splashed around, you have a better opportunity for any particles or contaminants to then fall down into the bottom of the crankcase, in which just gets it out as efficiently and as cleanly as possible. So when you replenish it, you're not putting good fresh oil inside a contaminated crankcase. So we like to do a hot oil change. My favorite container, ironically enough, is this Maxwell House coffee container. This one just happens to be, I believe, a camo. Might be a military one. Operation Finally Home. So be a hero and drink Maxwell House. You'll get a $6.50 beautiful oil drain container, which they've supplied me with 3 of them at this point. So it's pretty cool. I was looking for this other funnel here. I was just using it the other day. This whole getting organizing process has still been a challenge, but we're making it. Compared to my more recent past, I've been doing a lot better. However, I've been trying to do way too much at one time, so that'll get to you if you let it. Anyway, so I was looking for the Flexifoam because right now I knew this was coming. That oil starts draining right down on the case here, and then it runs all over my table, and it's just, I make enough messes in life. I just don't need to make any, there it is, any more messes that I have control over, in which this funnel gives some control over, and I love that aspect of it. So thank goodness. Let's see. I really need to get my hair cut. That has been a challenge. That has been a challenge in the more recent past. Trying to get a hold of the barber. I really like the way he does it, but he seems to be about as busy as I am. Be blessed. Here we go. So I have that tilted back some so that can hopefully start draining. I like to get that started right away because A, it's hot, and then B, I can move on to the next step of the process. Funny story on why we always remove the dipstick, but I'm ashamed to say it, but back in my mess, I rushed my dad through a repair with a Ford F-150, I believe it was, and I rushed it out of the shop, or he rushed it out of the shop because he just wanted to help me, but I wasn't really in the right place or frame of mind in life, and he rushed through it, and essentially he pulled it out after doing an oil change and forgot to add oil. Where the heck is mine? See? Russian. Looking for my tire gauge, guys. Use this thing every day. But yeah, he pulled it out Russian, and 5.5 miles up the road, his customer's engine blew. So, being the honest man that my dad was at that time there, he chose to buy him a new engine. It was over a $5,000 mistake. This machine has 20 psi max on the side. I go to 20, and I actually do that every time we work on a snowblower, because I don't know, very few times have we ever worked on snowblowers in which the tires aren't flat, and it just makes them harder to transport or move. So for our sake and the customer's sake, it's a nice, easy, cheap, free way to just give them a little bit better maneuverability. But as far as the tune-up goes, it's definitely always in the tune-up, but it's in every repair ever with snowblowers for us here. Yeah, my dad ended up buying that guy an engine. So it was a $5,000 mistake. I felt terrible, not then because, like I said, I was in the wrong frame of mind, but now, yeah, that's a shame. It's unfortunate. But, yeah, the moral of the story is we do not ever do an oil change or mess with oil or have any question on oil without removing that stick and leaving it out. So there's a noticeable reason as to we have to physically put this back in there, and at that point, if you don't remember, it's like you trigger on a finger in a gun. You never put your trigger on the trigger. You never put your finger on the trigger of the gun until you're 100% certain and you're ready to shoot. It's the exact same concept. You never put the dipstick in the crankcase until you're ready to leave. Whatever. Anyway, so we got the oil draining. The tires are full. We like to do a belt adjustment, and we like to just make sure that everything here is functioning as it is, or should. It is functioning, but I'm going to take it apart there because it doesn't have too much tension here. A lot of times I like that to engage sooner, and during the running process with the carburetor rebuild and then the new install on this machine earlier, I did notice some noise coming from the belt compartment. It sounded as if maybe the belt was just coming up and resting against that cover with a slight vibration or a hum, but it's two 10mm bolts, guys. So do yourself and your customer a favor and check. You might be able to, help them out with a belt or essentially sell them a belt, and they might need it. It's definitely not uncommon when you rebirth a piece of equipment, depending on how long it's been sitting, whether that be months, years, half a decade, these belts, the composition and the material of them deteriorate, or they become, a lot of times they're not even broke. A lot of times they just stretch, and you either can A, adjust them out, or B, you're going to need to replace them. So if you have the time and you have question within this mechanism, or you just choose to do it, check these belt systems. Make sure everything is functioning as you would hope or expect it to. So, let me get my flashlight here. There's a friction disc down here in which you should take note of. I guess in reality I'm going to need to bring this in closer. So there's a friction disc down here in which, I'm going to do my best here, guys, bear with me. If you see that plate right there, you'll notice that when you move this lever, that transfers motion to this plate here. When you get down in there far enough, you'll notice that as you transfer that motion to the plate, that's going to ride against that rubber disc. It's about center of the screen, right below the flashlight, there's a rubber band-like portion in that confined area adjacent to that disc. If you see how the disc pivots, I really don't know how I'm going to try to hold this. Okay. You can kind of see what it does there, but as this plate goes down, it rests on that rubber band like material or rubber compound, and when that happens, depending on where that rubber disc is, whether it's there or all the way out there, essentially, that what I just did right there was I moved the gear selector. So as you move this gear selector into a different position, what happens here is it changes the speed by putting it on a different position within that plate. So as it rides further on the outside most position of that plate, it's going to be going faster, and then as you come into it, it'll then reduce the speed. So that's how that actually functions, by the friction of this rotating on this plate, and depending on where it's positioned on this plate will either increase or decrease the RPMs, which is revolutions per minute, on that particular friction disc, in which then translates the motion to these tires. So hopefully that's a relatively effective communicated way on how that friction disc system works. And the friction disc is a known wear item, so we always check them. They're designed to wear out, and the best way I can tell you to prolong the life of them is going to be to never shift it unless you're still. Don't shift it while you're in motion. I actually just recently read that in a manual, I believe, that when you shift this in motion, it's creating friction on that disc. So if you shift it in motion while this is applied with tension, you're gonna increase the wear on not only the friction disc but the plate in which it rides on as well. So in my opinion, and the owner's manual's opinions, you shouldn't necessarily shift it unless you're at a rest. If it's a dangerous situation or something you're concerned, you can always just slap it in reverse real quick, no matter what you're doing, or forward, and try to get out of that bind. Whatever you feel your instinct tells you to do, I would not want to be the cause of someone to get hurt over that knowledge. But either way, in theory, as long as everything's safe, you want to come to a rest, shift, and then proceed forward. So, now that we've inspected the friction disc and the plate, the material on the disc is evenly weared, so I'd say this customer did not shift on the go. It looks like it's in good condition. The next thing I want to make sure is that this belt is okay, which it could be replaced. There is some indication